Now that the SG-553 is only $50 more expensive than the AK-47, why would you ever use anything else? Oh, that wasn't rhetorical. I have an answer. Greetings, TheWarOwl greets you. The AK-47 has long been the default rifle for T-side and Counter-Strike. It's iconic. It's a perfect balance of speed, accuracy, fire rate, damage, price, ease of use. It's the gun you buy on T-side. About a month ago, we got a price reduction in the SG-553, and we're seeing more professional players decide to use the SG-553. So let's compare the two weapons so you can decide which one you're going to use in-game. Damage. The most important stat is the one-hit headshot potential against helmets, something that both weapons share. Both weapons also have the same damage fall-off over distance and penetration power, which is the damage lost when shooting through stuff, not a sex thing. The difference is the AK-47 has a higher base damage than the SG, but the SG has 100% armor penetration, the highest in the game, and once again, not a sex thing. That means the SG does the same amount of damage whether a player has armor or not. The AK 3-shots a player in the chest with no armor, where the SG takes 4. With armor, the AK now takes 4 and the SG still takes 4. The SG does slightly more damage against armored players, but remember, armor doesn't affect the legs and the head's always going to be a one-hit headshot either way, so it only really matters for the chest and the stomach, and it's not that drastic of an increase. It seems like the AK-47 won this round, until you factor in the rate of fire. The AK-47 has a 600 rounds per minute rate of fire, whereas the SG-553 has a 6 rate of fire, proving it to be an ungodly weapon. While both weapons are going to be a 4-shot kill to the chest against armor, the SG will do it faster. For the most part in Counter-Strike, the enemy is going to buy chest armor. If they don't, the aim punches enough to where the AK-47's damage advantage won't be significant. Spread. This is where the SG-553 shines. It has a very high precision, almost twice the precision of the AK-47. This means there's very little randomness when you shoot. Where you aim is where your round's gonna go. In practice, the SG is much better for tap shooting, much better for long range, and has a much more reliable spray pattern because it's gonna stick to that spray pattern. To me, this is the biggest reason to use the SG-553 over the AK-47. Scope. The SG-553 has a scope, and while this has earned the weapon the pejorative nickname of COD gun, by the way, check out my Call of Duty video, it actually can be useful at longer distances. Fun fact! Scoping in does not delay the weapon from firing. You can shoot while the weapon is going through the scoping animation, so arguments that scoping wastes time are false. Fun fact over! When scoped, the SG-553 becomes even more precise, and the recoil is drastically lowered. One oddity here that makes it a little confusing is that the SG-553 uses a 3-time scope, but the recoil is reduced by 2. So I don't really know what's going on here. I highly recommend not scoping for pretty much every engagement. Scoping in slows you down to a snail's pace. It explains why Counter-Strike man is always hip firing. The only time you're gonna be using the scope is when you're holding very long angles. The SG-553 can serve as a viable counter and alternative to the AWP and the Scout. Here's the catch. Since scoping in obscures your vision and dramatically lowers your movement speed, it only makes sense to scope when you're passively holding long-ranged angles. And when are you gonna be passively holding long-ranged AWP angles? On the CT side. Another fun fact! The scoped crouching precision of the SG-553 is better than the AWP, making it the second to best crouching precision in the game. Number 1 being the AUG. Another fun fact over! Movement speed. The SG-553 movement speed is 2.3% slower than the AK-47. Doesn't seem very significant, but this is a place where the AK-47 is superior. Slightly. Reload speed. The SG-553 reload speed is 11% slower than the AK-47. That's 300 milliseconds slower. Woohoo! From everything that we've talked about, the AK-47 has some slight advantages over the SG, but the SG has some slight advantages over the AK-47, and one giant advantage over the AK-47, and that's the low spread. So I'll ask you again, why would you ever use anything else? Recoil algorithm. The SG-553 spray pattern goes up and to the right in a relatively straight line. It's not a straight line, but it looks like it's, just work with me here. This is very consistent. It's easy to control for the first 14 shots. After the first 14 shots, the weapon becomes unruly. The AK-47, on the other hand, starts going relatively straight up and then slightly to the side before reaching the max elevation. The first 5 shots of the AK are very easy to control and are only up and down. When you're actually engaging players in a real game scenario, they're running back and forth, they're going behind cover, they're weaving, they're dodging, they're ducking, and when you spray, it's a lot easier to just pull straight down and keep your crosshair below the head, matching their movement, instead of trying to factor in the diagonal movement. If a player were able to learn the SG spray better than the AK, then I'd recommend always going with the SG-553, but the beginning of the AK-47 spray is just more intuitive for the first 5 shots. And since players have already spent years learning it, making the switch can be jarring. The question of whether or not to purchase the SG-553 or the AK-47 is a matter of personal preference. It is up to you. However, I recommend you learn how to use both weapons, because now that some people are going to be purchasing the SG-553, you're gonna be picking them up off the ground, so you're gonna have to know how to use them if you come across them. I still find myself buying the AK-47 out of habit. I'm so used to it, I practiced it so much. The first 5 shots go up, it's easy to do like a quick burst fire and get a headshot with it. However, like, I understand the advantages of the SG, I understand the benefits of it, so I'm gonna be trying to use the SG more going forward. But I expect at the professional level, just because players know how to use the AK, and because of those first 5 shots, we're still gonna be seeing the AK-47 with a few SGs thrown in for good measure. Thank you folks very much for watching. I am the WarOwl, and I still have no closer. What happened to you, Blizzard?